Alright, another little update here. As you can see, the plans changed again. So, I found this boat. Somebody tagged me in it on Facebook. It's a Tahiti 81 16 foot. It's a stern drive, what I believe is maybe an old Volvo. And looks like it originally had a 4-cylinder in it, probably. And somebody at some point in time cobbled this Ford 302 in here. It cobbled horribly, I might add. It's dangerous, actually. But it had these frickin' badass manifolds on it. And the guy wanted $200. I mean, because the boat's junk. The stringers, the transom, it's hit. It's really rough. So he put the boat up for $200, and it couldn't be towed anywhere. I had to buy these wheels and tires for it. The original ones over there were not roadworthy by any means, and they're tiny. They look like handcart wheels, but for $200, and he was like an hour away from me. Like, these things are freaking sweet. They're way lighter weight. They're lower profile, way lower profile. They're awesome, and fortunately, the little adapters that I made, I mean, they work perfectly with these things. I don't have to relocate the coils like I thought I was going to have to now, because I got all kind of real estate in here to run wires down through. You know, so that saves me a bunch of money and time and brackets and everything like that. So the one downfall to them is they don't have risers. They just have these, you know, water outlets here, which is interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen manifolds that didn't have risers, but I'm sure they're out there. But I'm hoping that I can get away with running these. I was looking at, they make exhaust check valves, like in this size, which I believe was like 2.5, you know, and then maybe, I was thinking about doing side exit exhaust on the boat anyway. So if we can just turn this and head it right straight out the side of the boat, like way up from the transom, I just don't think I'm going to run into I don't think it'll need risers, but I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out. I'd rather try and run these than... you can find risers for these, but they're you know, they want $100 a piece for them, and they're used, and they're usually only selling one. So, the intake, I mean, I said if I found a good deal on an intake, a car intake, I'd buy it, and this was a good deal. It's a piece of shit intake. This is an LS4 front wheel drive intake. This is like the worst intake for an LS motor. Like, it's awful. It's made to be on the engine backwards like this, and you can see they have a relief here in the opening, the throttle opening, right behind the throttle opening. They notch the intake in order to clear the oil sender on these things. So it necks the opening way down to, like, I don't know, it was like 50 millimeter or something. So it's restrictive. It's terrible. But this is a stock 4.8. So, and like I keep saying, I don't care about how much power it develops. It'll be enough. So this guy was giving this thing away cheap, you know, with the fuel rail. So it's perfect for this application. I wanted to run it backwards anyway, so I bought a little aluminum adapter to convert it back to drive-by cable throttle body. That's an old throttle body off of the 6-liter over there. And I mean, the fuel rail turned around, because it normally the fuel fitting or whatever is up over here. But you flip it around and it's freaking perfect. The fuel line is aimed forward, which is where I wanted to bring the fuel line in to begin with. You know, and I'm able to have a gauge on it that faces forward. So I got the PCV stuff all routed. This thing that was a broken fitting. So I had to drill that out, tap it, put a brass fitting in there, and I just glued it in there with JB weld. So I'll run that over to the PCV over here, and the other breather end of the PCV I just looped around over here back to the, because that way I could keep the valve covers in the same position, so the oil fill is on the forward. You know, it's up here where it's easy to get to. It may be hard to get to if I flip-flopped them and then you had the oil fill in the back of the engine back here, but maybe not. I don't know. But so yeah, it's gonna work great. I had these whatever, the 585 coils, the good ones, the heat sink coils. I had these laying around from something else, so I'll put these on. The water routing, I've been going all over the place on the water routing. Originally I had gate valves after the engine here, and I didn't necessarily see that to be a problem, and it may not have been a problem, I don't know. You hunt around on forums and stuff, and people go back and forth about it. Some people restrict after, some people restrict before. But the more I thought about it, it's like, if I'm using gate valves, you know, that one there, you're restricting flow. But if you have to get down to a certain point, you're going to start increasing pressure on the front side of the valve too. So I figured with them after the engine, the front side of those valves, the side of the system that is subjected to the higher pressure resulting from restricting at those valves, would be the engine, all the way back to the pump. So I had it all on there, and I started thinking about that, and I'm like, it's probably not a good idea. Like, if you restrict it coming in just with one gate valve, like a lot of guys do, you're only subjecting a short little length of hose to increased pressure from the, you know, the restriction in the gate valve. So I mean, I just decided to do it the same way as the other boat. Just put the gate valve first, and then right after the gate valve, put the pressure relief valve, like right back there by the pump. Just do it that way. That's the best way of doing it. You know, and then the other debate with routing like this is, in a jet application, a lot of guys say to run through the manifolds first. From, you know, your lake water coming from the pump into these first, the bottom fitting here, and then out the top, and then into the engine, because it preheats the water going into the motor, because otherwise you have a hard time getting temperature in them. My problem with that is, my boat was originally, the other boat, the blue boat, was originally plumbed where it went right into the engine, like this would be, and then into the manifolds afterwards. It has very similar manifolds, just like these. And the only problem I have with setting it up like that is I'm plugging the thing up with weeds all the time, pretty often. Chances are with this boat, I'm going to be doing that even more often. You know, we're trying to like send this thing into places you probably really shouldn't go with a jet boat. And as soon as you plug the pump even a little bit, the efficiency of the pump goes away, and then you don't have any pressure on the the tail end of the impeller inside the bowl, and it's the pressure in the bowl that forces the water up, you know, the cooling line. So you lose cooling water, and if you're not paying attention, the boat overheats. And with the amount of shit that I'm probably going to run this pump through, you know, there's going to be a lot of sediment going through this thing, and that's a different issue altogether. But it's going to be losing its cooling water probably pretty frequently. And if you run it through the manifolds first, you know, it starts spitting and sputtering or whatever, and you don't have a full flow of water. Well, now you're running it through the exhaust first before you get into the engine. Like, that's only going to exacerbate the how quickly the engine overheats. It's like it's gonna compound the issue. So I'm still kind of up in the air about it. I don't know. I was gonna run this one into the block first, and then do into the manifolds, and then it'll come out this top fitting and go back to the little outlet riser, I guess you call it. I don't know, it's not really a riser, but because that's a separate chamber from this chamber. And that's how this boat was done. It had hard lines that came off of this top fitting and went to that fitting. There was a hard stainless line that just connected the two. So if I do it this way, that's how that 302 was set up. So I don't know. I think it goes back and forth. It seems like some people do it one way and some people do it the other way. Maybe half the people are doing it wrong. But I think I'm going to try it this way first, and then see if I can get the temperature where I want it with the gate valve ahead of the whole system. You know, I think it got to be perfect. You just got to get something in it. Like the 455 and the other one had no restriction in the thermostat housing at all, and it was into the engine first and then into the exhaust. And that was how it was when I first got it. And you couldn't get any temperature in that boat at all. It was like 100 degrees, maybe. The gauge wasn't even hardly doing anything. And routing it the other way, I was able to get temperature in it. But I also restricted, I played with restrictor plates in the thermostat housing, I think. And now that boat runs, you know, depending on the water that you're in, depending on how hot it is, or the water temperature, but it's usually 140, 50, 60, maybe 70, right around there, you know. But when that boat starts to overheat, that damn 455 will peg the gauge in a very short amount of time. And I've boiled that motor a couple of times. I don't want to do that with this. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm just going to try and do it this way, and if it don't work out, I'll change it. I was going to run a water pressure fitting right there so I can keep an eye on that. There'll probably be like a bulkhead in front of the engine, you know, because I want to build a cover for the engine, so there might be a bulkhead right in front of the motor here. But you can have like a hole in it or something, you know, in line with either of these gauges or something. At least the water pressure gauge. You don't need to keep an eye on fuel pressure all the time. I like to leave those right on. Like my Jeep, it's still, the gauge just stays right on the engine. I don't know if that's a stupid thing to do or not, but it's like, why not just leave it on there? You always know what the fuel pressure is. Always. There's no hooking tools up to it. So yeah, it's we got the motor all obviously cleaned up. You can see probably the last video I posted with this thing, it was a mess, and we used an oven cleaner, which worked amazing. I've never used that before for cleaning an engine. It was amazing. I power washed it, and I could have rinsed it off with a garden hose. Like you don't even got to power wash it. The oven cleaner just eats the shit right off of it. It's unbelievable. So then we needle scaled the block, obviously because the block was all rust, and a buddy of mine just took this industrial epoxy and just he didn't even tape it off. He just cut it all in and painted it. It's Bar Rust 235. It's made to be painted onto a rusted surface. It actually bonds better to that than clean surface. It's really good shit. I use it a lot at work. What else? I still haven't got the boat blasted. Been busy with these side projects. One of them's a trailer, and it's just about done. Which should make a pretty good chunk of change on that. But we decided we're just gonna blast in the backyard. We have all the mobile equipment to do it at work. Lots of portable air compressors, lots of portable blast cans, dryers, the whole blast setups. We do a lot of blasting and painting on the road, so it would be easy for, you know, to just go out back, excuse me, behind the garage here. I got a really big backyard. There's a couple acres back there. Go back there by the woods and just set the whole thing up, set a compressor up and a can and a dryer, and this stuff's all on trailers. It would just be 2 trailers that we brought out here, and it'd probably only take us, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 bags or something of sand to blast that whole boat inside and out. So it shouldn't be a big deal, you know. And then I'm just getting a bunch of sand in my grass. Yip-de-doo. I don't really care. So, and then we were going to bring it in here and put it on jack stands. And start getting the thing sealed up in terms of the intake and the pump, the suction housing, everything. I got all that stuff all prepped. I was going to run all of it through our big blast cabinet, the suction housing, the transom housing, the bowl, every part of the pump we completely disassembled and then taped up, you know, where necessary. And it's all going to get blasted in the cabinet with aluminum oxide. And then I was thinking about taking it over to these guys that we deal with here and there that do powder coating, and have them just powder coat the entire pump and do it in like powder coat black. The pump would look sweet, like gloss black. And it was powder coating, it'd hold up to a lot more abuse. But the only problem is you can't touch it up as well. Or as easy, I should say, as paint. But because I want to get the boat sealed up, get the engine at least sitting in there, get the fuel tanks sitting in there, and just fill them up full of water first. Whatever, water weighs more than gas, you know, give it an even better idea. But get all these heavy things in the boat, not anything hooked up. Do the bare minimum in order to get all this weight in the boat, but the boat also floats. So you got to get the intake and the pump and everything set in the boat, and then just go throw it in the water before we go any further with it. You know, you get a rough idea where the boat is going to sit in the water, and if it looks like shit, like it don't look right at all, like holy shit, it's listing way towards the stern, or it's just downright sitting too damn low in the water, and it just don't look happy at all, then we'll go a different route. This motor and pump and all this other shit will work in any one of these damn StarCraft hulls, but I don't think I'm going to have a problem. It is kind of a small boat. You know, it's only 14 some odd feet. But, I don't know. I've seen similar boats. They're hard to find, but I've seen similar builds. Little shops that, you know, maybe only were around for a short time, a few years or something, and they only manufactured, like, you know, who knows, 5-10 boats a year or whatever, if that. Maybe they only did just a few a year. And I can't think of the names of them right offhand, but very similar in length and beam. You know, purpose-built welded aluminum hulls made to run rivers. And there's a few of them I've seen with either American turbine or Hamilton pumps in them. And like Ford small block power, you know, 240, 250 horse 302. So that motor is substantially heavier than this motor. You know, we got a plastic intake here. We got aluminum heads. I think even the block weighs less, even though it's still iron. You know, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. It may sit maybe a little bit uncomfortably low in the water when it's just sitting there in a static position. And if I'm a little bit iffy about it, then it's not really going to matter, because the idea is when you're doing this, you're up on plane. The boat, maybe it sits a little bit too far down in the water when it's off plane. And that could get you in trouble in certain situations, you know, where you suddenly have to jump off plane and you just park the boat on the bottom of the river because you were running in pretty shallow water. You know, say you're going down the river and there's a fishing boat that just is hauling the mail coming back the other way. So, I don't know, they get you in trouble in certain situations, but I think for the most part, I'll be fine. You just got to keep an eye on the level of the river. You get accustomed to using whatever, you know, as reference, and just don't go up and down the river here if it's a little bit too low. It only takes a couple feet, and you're just going to be bashing into shit the whole way down the river. So, I think it'll be fine. But I do want to at least have a rough idea. So, and it won't be hard. You know, throw the boat on the trailer and take it over. We have a pond at work right next to our office. I could back the damn boat into our little tiny pond there just to get an idea where it's going to draft. So, anyways, I'm yammering. I always try and keep these things short, and then they wind up 20 some odd minutes long. So, yeah, I'm chugging away at it, and I know I keep changing my mind, and everything keeps flip-flopping, but I couldn't pass up these manifolds, man. These things are freaking sweet. And, you know, I looked at similar ones like this for a Ford small block, and you look them up on eBay or wherever else. These guys want $400, $500, $600, $700 for these things. So it's pretty neat that I only had to spend a few $100, and I'm hoping to off this boat. Maybe even if I get $100 out of it, it'd be worth it for these manifolds. So cool. I'll keep you posted. I think that covers everything. Thanks for watching.